Hey folks, this is Toby Vance from Darwin's Pit Bull. Today we're going to talk about the distinction between a theory and a fact, because this is one of those areas where there's a lot of confusion in the whole creation evolution debate. So follow along with me into the presentation. Okay, so we're talking about fact versus theory in the creation evolution debate. Many times you'll hear creationists say something like, evolution is only a theory. And usually by saying that, they're implying that it's nothing more than just sort of a guess, um, maybe an educated guess. In saying that, though, they're showing that they have a very gross misunderstanding of how the term theory is used in science. And they're showing that that misunderstanding takes place really in two areas that I want to talk about today. The first is that it is true that evolution is a theory, but evolution is also a fact. In science, we make a differentiation between theories and facts. A fact is something that is observed. It's an observed piece of data. A theory is something that explains that observed piece of data. For example, every day we all see the sun come up in the east, cross the sky during the day, and then go down in the west. Since the beginnings of humankind, we've witnessed this big ball of fire that moves across the sky every day, and we call it the sun. It's an observed fact. We know the sun's there. We see it every day. Yet at the same time, scientists have a theory about how the sun functions and how it burns. That theory is an explanation of the how of the fact of the sun. So we know, at least from the theory that's put forth today by scientists, that what we think is actually going on is that within the core of the sun, there are all these nuclear reactions taking place that are occurring due to the result of a massive amount of gravitational pressure, because the sun is so dense, that pushes down on all of those hydrogen atoms in the core of the sun. And in doing so, creates and sparks all of these nuclear explosions that keep the sun burning. That's our current theory about how the sun burns. Could be someday that maybe that theory's proven wrong and we come up with a better theory to explain how the sun functions. That's not going to change the fact that we see the sun every day in the sky, and there is something that we call the sun. So that shows the differentiation between a fact and a theory. Now, something else that also has to be known about theory is that the term theory in science doesn't have the same meaning that we use when we use it in just everyday common language. For instance, you may have a friend who says something to you like, "Oh, I have a theory about how OJ killed his wife." Usually when someone uses the term theory in that way, they're really meaning nothing more than just kind of a guess, their opinion, sometimes not even a very educated one at that. That's not the way in which we use the term theory in science. Theory in science refers to a body of evidence that has been tested repeatedly and has stood the test of time through these repeated experiments. And usually something that has the status of a theory is a very strong body of evidence. It's not something that's just a guess. In fact, we have a term in science for something that's more of just an educated guess. We call that a hypothesis. And that's usually what a creationist is referring to when they use the term theory. They're thinking of evolution like it's a hypothesis, just an educated guess. But evolution is not a hypothesis. It's a theory. And we have used repeated multiple experiments to prove that the theory holds up, and it has held up for a long time. Now, the current theory in science about how evolution takes place is what we call the neo-Darwinian theory. That theory uh, is our best current explanation for how evolution occurs. We put that theory to the test in many repeated experiments, and it's held up very well so far. Now, as I said before, it may be someday that we find a better theory that accounts for how evolution occurs. Doesn't mean that the fact of evolution is any less true. We know evolution's a fact from multiple uh, lines of evidence that prove that it's a fact. And so even if the theory itself is wrong, the fact of evolution remains. And I have many more videos that show some of those lines of evidence that prove that evolution's a fact. So when you hear about scientists and evolutionists debating various aspects of the theory of evolution, and many times critiquing some of those elements, that doesn't mean they doubt the fact of evolution. It only means that they're having debates about the theory of evolution itself. So the fact of a piece of knowledge isn't dependent upon the truth of the theory. The theory, as we said, may ultimately turn out to be wrong. But even if it does, the fact still remains. I like this quote from Stephen Jay Gould, who was a paleontologist, famous paleontologist and biologist, who passed away several years ago. This quote clearly shows how we make that differentiation between what's a fact and what's a theory, and how even though evolution is only a theory, it is also a fact. As Stephen Jay Gould says, well, evolution is a theory. It is also a fact, and facts and theories are different things, not rungs in a hierarchy of increasing certainty. Facts are the world's data. Theories are structures of ideas that explain and interpret facts. Facts don't go away when scientists debate rival theories to explain them. Einstein's theory of gravitation replaced Newton's in this century, but apples didn't suspend themselves in midair pending the outcome. And humans evolved from ape-like ancestors, whether they did so by Darwin's proposed mechanism or by some other yet to be discovered.